Do I have a motion to reconvene?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Monroe, seconded by Mr. Treebuzzer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman.
Ms. Bourdain? Here. Harris? Here. Milner? Here. Donna? Here. Tamburello? Here. Here. Here.
Here. Will someone make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meetings?
So motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebuzzer. Are there any petitions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Wolfman, please state for the record any notice of bids received by the board. Thank you. Dr. Massimino, please introduce our student representative from Colonia High School, Josh O'Leary.
Thank you, Madam President. Joshua Remy is the current senior at Colonia High School, maintaining a 3.85 GPA and in the top 13% of his class, 350 students. Josh has continued to challenge himself both academically and athletically over his 4 years at Colonia High School. Academically, he has taken 4 honors level courses, 3 AP level courses, and 3 college level courses, including dual enrollment credit options with Middlesex County College. Josh's leadership in the classroom has also led him to induction into 3 honor societies at Colonia High School, Rho Kappa, Nu Alpha Theta, as well as the National Honor Society. Josh's leadership skills in athletics have been equally impactful. Josh has competed in boys basketball and boys volleyball for 2 years, and football all 4 years. Josh has earned a varsity letter in football the past 3 seasons and has also been selected as team captain the past 2 seasons as their starting quarterback and safety. Josh Oleremi leads by example, and that leadership took the Patriots football team to the Group 4 state semifinals and an 8-3 record this past fall. Josh has already received postseason honors such as the Jersey Sports Zone Player of the Week, First Team All Division, Big Central Conference, First Team All Conference, My Central Jersey Player of the Year, First Team All Area Home News Tribune, and selected to the New Jersey Football Coaches Association Super 100 team. Josh is currently narrowing his college commitment decision between full scholarship offers to schools like LIU, as well as partial offers at this time to schools such as Cornell University, Columbia, Fordham, Dartmouth, as well as Monmouth University. Colonia High School is very proud to share with the Woodbridge Township School District this evening a tremendous student and role model for our community, Joshua Oleremi. Josh, I know this was written without you knowing, and having watched you play, you are quite impressive on the field. Is there any other news you'd like to share with us?
Thank you. I was just blessed to receive another offer from Delaware State University.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Massimino, members of COLT, President Anderson, and members of the Board of Education for inviting me here this evening. I'll be reading some of the activities the schools have. Starting with School 20, we celebrated Veterans Day with Mr. Ray Orris and Mr. Paul DiPaolo from American Legion Post 471. Stories by Pacific Northwest Indigenous tribes were read in class to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Month. American Education Week was celebrated with our kindergartners dressing up for their dream jobs and exploring careers, while their parents attended class virtually. An apple for our teacher project was held thanks to our teachers and school aides. Our National Elementary Honor Society organized this Siwa Diwali food drive and created a presentation and a video about Diwali. Classes completed the hour of code. Our school has restarted the chess club for grades 3 and 5. Next up is school number 22. We welcomed and celebrated with a local veteran during our Veterans Day program on 11/12. On 11/17, the Avenel Middle School Sidekicks visited with 4th grade students. Our fall into reading program began 11/22, and so far, over 200 students have won a prize for meeting their weekly reading goals. Students observed the hour of code during the week of 12/6. Our chorus and band held their winter concert on 12/14. Next is School 27. Our annual trunk or treat was held on 11/5 with over 75 families participating. We celebrated Native American Heritage Month with lessons focusing on Native American culture. We honored local veteran Gary White during our Veterans Day celebration on 11/12. American Education Week was celebrated with parents virtually visiting their child's classroom. So far, students have read over 149,000 minutes as part of our Lions Reading Challenge. Our annual Thanksgiving food drive was held to support St. James Food Pantry. Students observed the hour of code during the week of 12/6. Parent-teacher conferences were held during the week of 12/6. The PTL sponsored our holiday shop, providing the opportunity for students to do some shopping. Next up is Avenel Middle School. We celebrated Computer Science Week and the Hour of Code. Family Literacy Night will give families the opportunity to work and learn together. Family Book Club promotes our students' love of reading. The boys and girls basketball teams are working hard and displaying great sportsmanship. A special tribute was held for our veterans. Our Giving Tree supports our families in need. Celebrations of diversity were held throughout the school. The student council coordinated our spirit programs and holiday door decorating. The National Junior Honor Society and Community Service Club collected donations for a variety of charitable organizations, all come in our day of giving celebration. Teacher Maria Annan was selected as a 2021 New Jersey Exemplary Educator of the New Jersey Department of Education. Next up is Colonial High School. The Interact Club sponsored a competition to support our military by collecting personal hygiene products and snack items to fill 100 care packages. Holiday cards were included with the care packages. A night of one act plays was performed by students on 11/12 and 11/13. On 11/12, we held our annual Veterans Day breakfast. On 11/14, SLAC visited Avenel Middle School students to have conversations and complete activities about identity and celebrating diversity. On 11/24, CHS celebrated Native American History Month with an Indigenous people presentation along with school announcements sharing the facts and details about Indigenous people. In December, the French and Chinese Honor Society collected coats for a local church and also raised money for one of the women's shelters. Interact Club students adopted a family, and three sisters will have their Christmas wishes come true as a part of the USPS Operation Santa. 30 students were chosen to have their essays published in Unsolved by Young Writers publication. Students participated in the Hour of Code throughout the day on 12/9 and 12/10. The Winter Choir concert will be held on 12/16 at 6:30 p.m. The counseling department collected gift cards for those in need to celebrate the holidays. The baseball program collected over 300 items for the U.S. Marine Corps Toys for Tots. A No Shave November fundraiser raised money for children with cancer. The Interact Club hosted a hand-in-hand holiday celebration on 12/14. The swimming team participated in a swimathon to benefit the Marissa Tafaro Foundation. Winter sports are up and running. We welcome our fans back to enjoy our athletes and remind all visitors to wear a face mask covering at all indoor activities. Colonial High School is also proud to be a part of the Woodbridge Township School District Joint High School Ice Hockey Team, who is currently undefeated and in first place in the GMC. Thank you all for this opportunity for me to be a part of this evening's Board of Education meeting.
Thank you for that great report and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Pace, the principal of Colonia High School, for coming out and supporting your student. Thank you, Mr. Pace. Dr. Massimino, please state for the record the superintendent's reports for the month of November 2021.
Thank you, Madam President. I present the following monthly reports: student registers and fire drill report, suspension reports for elementary and secondary schools, bomb threat reports, and reports of the attendance officers.
Thank you. The public is invited to speak at the conclusion of each agenda. Comments at this time should be limited to the items on the agenda being presented. When you come to the microphone, please provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside. As per Regulation 1100D, comments must be limited to no more than 5 minutes. No response will be given until you have completed your opportunity to speak. Superintendent's agenda, Dr. Massimino, do you have any recommendations?
Madam President, I have 21 items to present to the board.
Do I have a motion for the superintendent's agenda? I have a motion by Mr. Treebwasser,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sedana. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
What?
On a specific resolution? Agenda item?
You have to come to the podium.
Can you help me with what page?
So this is the way we do it in Woodbridge is that there's a number of agendas and the public has an opportunity to comment on agenda items only as it relates to each specific agenda. So do you have a comment with respect to
The superintendent's agenda?
the superintendent's agenda?
Yes, please. Number 6? Is that number 6?
Number 6 on the superintendent's agenda?
Okay, one moment. Give me a second, because I'm having. What page is it on? Go on.
One.
How many pages this way?
It would be the second page.
Do you have a
Second page?
specific matter?
Thank you, Ms. Andrews.
You said number 6?
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, one more. I'm just one second.
Sir, if you don't have any comments or questions, I need to move the meeting forward.
Okay, I apologize. I was just looking.
Roll call,
You
Mr.
know.
Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain.
On item number 5, I will abstain in the name of Susan Bourdain, yes to all others.
Mr. Delapietro.
On item number 5, I will abstain in the name of Frank Del Pietro, yes on all other items.
Mr. Harris.
On item number 5, I will abstain in the name of Daniel Harris, yes on the remaining agenda.
Mr. Molnar.
On item number 5, I'll be abstaining in the name Brian Molnar, yes on all other items.
Mr. Sedana.
On item number 5, I will abstain under the name Akshar Sedana, yes on the rest of the items.
Mr. Tamburello.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
I will abstain in the name Jonathan Treebwasser on item 5, yes on all other items.
Mr. Velez.
On item number 5, I'll abstain in the name Joseph Velez, yes on all other items.
And Ms. Anderson.
On item number 5, I will abstain in the name Marie Anderson, yes to all other items. Policy and Planning Agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam President. The Policy and Planning Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, moves the following 8 items. I move the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Harris?
Yes, I want to thank the administration for putting on items number 3, 4, and 5. It's the season of giving. It's the holidays. Throughout the year, many people do many generous things. Whether it's the School 19 community rallying behind a family that lost a home, or these 3 examples during the holiday season, led by a number of different groups throughout our town. They do great work throughout the year. I thought it was appropriate that we recognize these groups because they partnered with our school district, specifically with our school counselors. We identified some families that are perhaps on hard times or struggling financially, and the Woodbridge PVA, Councilwoman Debbie Meehan and Wegmans, they supplied over 100 meals for the Thanksgiving holiday, and for the for the Christmas season, Hanukkah season. Two other fantastic groups, assisted our families with, toys for the holidays. In particular, the Port Reading First Aid Squad, led by one of our employees, Erica Michi, and Anthony Tarabeski, a tremendous volunteer in our school district. And then finally, the larger of the two events annually is the Woodbridge Billiards Club, in partner with Councilwoman Meehan and the Woodbridge Police Department and numerous benefactors. They're supplying over 160 families or children worth of toys. It's actually a bit of a typo on the resolution here. It's actually not 160 gifts. It's 160 children, and typically they receive probably at least 5 toys each. So it's a tremendous, tremendous effort organized by many people, and I just thought it was appropriate during the holiday season to recognize all the many things that make our township special and how we retain our small town feel. So I want to thank the administration for giving me a chance to recognize those great groups. Thank you all.
Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello. Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Curriculum agenda, Mr. Treebwasser.
Thank you, Madam President. The Curriculum Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following 2 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Treebwasser,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sedana. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Madam President?
Mr. Harris?
Just a quick shout out here to Mr. Passerino. He began his term as Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction on November the 1st, and his first big public event. Together, we partnered, but you did most of the work, hosted in partnership the Middlesex County Vocational Technical Schools Open House Night. I know Ms. Bourdain joined me at the event. It was a packed house, probably 200 plus families, really informative. Thank you to Mr. Passerino for keeping that event going. The purpose of that event is to educate parents and students about the 5 Middlesex County Vocational Technical Schools, make sure students know about their option when they graduate our middle schools, that they have the option for free of charge to attend one of those fine 5 schools. And once again, a big thank you to the Middlesex County Vocational Technical School guidance staff who came out that evening and put on a terrific presentation. So once again, I want to thank you, Mr. Passerino. You did a good job. Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Good evening, Tom Maris, Port New Jersey. On the subject curriculum, item number 1, that the Board of Education approve the previously submitted English language learner 3-year program plan outlined for 21 through 24. By whom was that plan designed? And in adjunct to that also, will that be addressing the use of gender pronouns, and if so, for what grades? I also have a question on number 2, and that question relates to that the Board of Education approved the previously submitted middle school program of studies booklet for the academic year of 22 to 23. Again, by whom was that booklet designed, and does it address DEI? Thank you.
Dr. Massimino.
Your question number 1, the 3-year program is overseen by Mr. Passerino and driven by our ESL supervisor in conjunction with any other supervisor that can offer assistance. I'll defer to Mr. Passerino to give a more in-depth explanation about the middle school program of studies.
Mr. Passerino?
The three-year plan is what outlines our services as a part of the ESL and bilingual programs. It's a compliance with the New Jersey Department of Education. It's an outline of our current services, where they exist, how many staff, and how many students are enrolled in each of our respective ELL programs and magnet schools.
And that's available? You can Oprah that? Is it a plan that is transportable, so to speak? Where can one find it, if you will?
Mr. Pasquino?
Yes, that plan is operable. It opened, this is a part of a presentation that will be presented at the January agenda. This is a plan that was submitted by the State Department of Education. And this is, again, a compliance issue.
And part of that question to number one was also, is it going to be addressing the use of gender pronouns?
This is a listing
Okay,
of just the services, the staff, and the schools.
I understand it now, thank you. And then point number two. The middle school program, again, that was addressing DEI, that's, I don't want to complete the two. I asked two separate things. You've got 2 points on the agenda, that the English language learner 3-year program.
So,
I think the easiest way to do it, maybe save time, because there's a lot of people here tonight, is I'll simply Oprah the two and go from there. But thank you for your courtesy of response.
roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
You have to come to the podium if you want to speak to the board.
Thank you. No, I was just waiting to be called on because I didn't know how many other, people raise their hand at the same time. So just for this one, the curriculum part, that's what we're speaking on?
Yes, the
That he was
curriculum
speaking on?
agenda.
Okay. I too want to know, for number 2, that the Board of Education approve the previously submitted middle school program of studies booklet for the academic year 2022-2023. I don't understand why. Is the material online? It should be on here, but is the
You
material
have to ask
online?
all your questions so that your time doesn't run out.
Ask all my
So that's your one
questions.
question? Is that your only question?
No, that's not. I would also like to make a few statements on the middle school program studies booklet. Since this has to do with the curriculum, I know Governor Murphy, by the time 2023, 2022 comes along, he wants to start the hypersexualization of the children. And I hope I see you shaking your head. Just give me a moment. I'm not trying to be inappropriate at all. I promise you, Lawyer Bush. I hope this has nothing to do with hypersexualizing the children, teaching the children the critical race theory. I don't think it belongs in the school. Here in the school system, a kid comes to school to be educated. They don't come to this school to learn people's biases, discrimination, to be taught that one set of group of people are privileged, more privileged than another. I hope that we can keep that out of the inside the curriculum. I understand some members of the public, they might not disagree. They might disagree with me, and that's okay. This is America. When I went to school, we didn't have what they're doing now, the sexualizing the children, making kids feel ashamed for being a white person, because that's what's really going on. I'm from South Edison. At the Edison schools, we had one of the teachers give out a piece of curriculum to the children, how much privilege you have, to draw a line across the room. They started all these kids that they're supposed to be together, to melt together. The teacher is forcing them to draw a line down the middle of the class, separating them. I think that's a little bit obnoxious. I hope we can leave the politics outside the school system and just strictly focus on educating the child, and that's it. And my buddy Jimmy, he might disagree with me over there, but I don't think I'm saying anything wrong. I love you, Jimmy. I love
Sir?
your point of view.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
You're only supposed to address the board.
Yes, ma'am. And so I got a minute and 46 seconds left. Absolutely. If there's any critical race theory to divide the children when we're supposed to be united, we have to remove it right away. Hypersexualization of the children. What do I speak about when I say hypersexualization? Governor Murphy wants to teach the kids anal sex. When I went to Catholic school, I was taught that this is sodomy.
Sir?
Okay? So no, one moment, if you, hey, please, I'm not trying to be inappropriate at all.
Sir?
Mayor Bush,
You made your point.
you know, I'm not trying to be inappropriate. I'm just
I
trying.
understand.
Sir?
You made your point, sir.
You made your point.
I'm not yet. I'm here to air my grievances out with the government. This is my constitutionally protected activity. That means even if you disagree with me, please, as long as I'm speaking for this agenda item, I should be allowed to continue, please.
Then please make your point, which you've already made. You have anything else to say?
Yeah, I would like to. I got 44 seconds left to continue my statement.
You don't
It's
have a
not-
right to just extend your time with the
I'm
same
not
thing you've
extending
said.
my time.
Okay,
This is a- this is a time
I'm just explaining the rules, sir. Go
that I'm
ahead.
lawfully being given. I'm not taking advantage of anything. Or do you say I'm taking advantage of something, lawyer? This is the amount of time that you gave to me.
This is your time, sir. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Well, you know, so it's our time. We're both here. If I'm here and you're here, it's our time. So, but it's my time to speak. Don't take it away from me. So, yeah. Down to 6 seconds. See, you pulled that political trick, Bush. You pulled that trick. You started from
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Finance and Insurance, Mr. Tamburello.
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance and Insurance Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following 11 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing 11 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Tamburello,
Second?
seconded by Ms. Bourdain. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Tom Maris, Forge. Just briefly on point number one, the board's expenditures. I note that there's a $597,207.44 for food services. That's going to the new food cafeteria supplier now? And how does that compare, plus, minus, or the same for what the costs were when we had Chartwell for any given month? That's my only question.
Mr. Wolferman?
The bill that you're seeing there for the food services is predominantly for Chartwells because they were finishing up for the month of November. And there is a little bit of the first few days of November that was done by Pontonian. So to give you a cost analysis would be unfair because it's 2 days versus a whole month.
So it's premature. Okay, I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Right, David Pinkowitz, Islam. Item number 4, which is bookkeeping transfers. And then of the agenda transfers, I want to ask about number 11. So the question, I'll make a comment, but the question will be, whose budget is the from coming from? And then there's 2 budget items on the right side. I'd like to know whose budget items those are going to. My comment is just this. I'm not objecting to equity teams. I don't know enough about conferences and registrations to say whether those are a good idea. But I am concerned when I see $120,000 coming out of textbooks, when I see occasionally textbooks that need replacement. Obviously, textbooks also include new textbooks and new curriculum. So I'm just kind of asking, in addition to identifying whose budgets are on the left and right side of that transfer, why are we taking out of textbooks for these other items? Why not take it from somewhere else? Thank you.
Mr. Wolferman?
Thank you. The actual people in, I think you're looking for somebody to be in charge. These are both curriculum items. One falls under our new DEI, where the textbooks obviously are more curriculum. And the textbook line that you see has to do with new textbooks. There is replacement textbooks elsewhere. This was a discussion with the assistant superintendent for curriculum in determining where the best place to take the money that wasn't being needed. That's not the entire line, and where it would be needed for the DEI teams as well as the conferences related to it.
Hi, my name is Amy. I'm addressing number 5, the Board of
Amy,
Education.
which section of the township do you live?
I'm sorry, in Fords. The Board of Education approved the previously submitted list. This is also my first meeting, so I don't know exactly what was submitted, but the professional development conferences for staff members. I'd like to know what entails with the professional development conferences and what staff members need to attend that? And is that for all of the schools in the township?
Excuse me, ma'am, what item on the finance agenda are you addressing? What
Oh,
item number?
You had said it was 1 through 11,
Yeah,
so
what-
I had done number 5.
Number 5?
Yes.
That's the treasurer's report for the month of October 2021.
She's referring to the superintendent's agenda.
Oh, that's number 5 is, okay.
Yeah, I had just heard 1 through 11, so I had gone back to superintendent.
Okay, so the superintendent's agenda, we've already passed through. We're on the finance and insurance agenda. You could come back at the end during public comment.
Perfect, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
South Edison, Krista. Thank you. Finance and insurance. I want to know, my first question is what the name of the insurance company is?
What item number are you asking about? What item number on the finance and insurance committee agenda are you asking?
Oh, it has to be on a specific.
Yes, it has to be
Okay.
on a
I
specific,
apologize.
yes. So what item number, sir?
Oh, no, that's not a number. Let me keep.
Excuse me, sir?
Yes, sir.
You have to know what it is that you want to say before you come up to the microphone, so that when you're ready to speak, you're not wasting the board's time. I'm not suggesting that you are, but just as a general rule of thumb, the board has important business, and we really want to hear from you. As I told you before, as the meeting was beginning, we do want to hear from you. We're glad you're here, but you've got to please have a question or a comment to make when you come up to the microphone.
Okay, out of respect, I'm gonna bounce out of this one. I apologize, that I wasn't ready beforehand, but normally they allow me to, I'd rather.
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Security and school safety agenda, Mr. Velez.
Thank you, Madam President. Security and School Safety Committee, on the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, present the following one item. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Velez,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Tom Maris, Fords. In regard to this, what it pertains to is the approval of off-duty officers to patrol all 25 schools through the school day at a rate of $47 per hour, 8 hours per day per officer, effective January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. Township to provide police cars and fuel at no additional cost to the district. Obviously, that still befalls to the taxpayers because we'll have to bear the cost for whatever the vehicles run. But what is the estimated budget that the school will be paying for the officers through that period of time? Do you have a total estimate?
Is that your only question?
25 schools is a lot of schools, so
It's here.
obviously a lot of police required to handle that much. The town is 24 square miles.
Is that your only question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, there's only one item, and that's my
Okay.
one question. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Wolferman?
I'm going to defer to Dr. Massimino.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dr. Massimino.
because it's a security issue, Mr. Maris, we would have to divulge how many sectors we have and how we divide up how they are given. And we don't give out that kind of security information. So
I wasn't asking for sectors. I was asking if you accumulated a total estimated budget for the cost of it. There's a bit difference. I anticipated
we
you'd give me that response. So I'm asking just, is there a general budgetary?
we do, but I cannot share that number with you at this time.
And that would not be in your capital report when you have to disclose your financials? Is that correct?
You want to explain how the budget process works?
Mr. Mayor, we have a budget line for security to give you
Right.
specifics as to these particular officers would be then giving information as to what Dr. Massimino said
All right,
about
so this
sectors.
is
If
part
you'd
of
like
the
to know the
general
security-
overall budget? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you'd like to open the budget, then we can give you the total amount that we pay to security. Absolutely.
Okay, I understand why you would be reluctant, and I agree with you, because somebody could do the extrapolation and figure out how many officers you have patrolling, so I understand. Thank you.
Stacy Gregg. I'm going to go back to this.
Excuse me, Ms. Grant,
Yes,
what
Greg.
section of the township do you reside?
I don't. I'm in Rockaway. So, again, on the same topic, under security and school safety, $47 per hour salary is, I don't know if that's a going rate for police off-duty, but 25 schools. My phone broke tonight, but I could do the math on how many school days there are times 8-hour shifts, because you're only having one officer. So it's nothing to do with Homeland Security or a security breach or anything else. So that answer really was not appropriate for that. But I was wondering that as well on the budget. Something I want to talk about later, which you didn't budget quite as well for. I'm imagining that your police officers are primarily male officers. And that's a nice hourly rate, and I believe in a fair living wage for everybody. I hope that you have a requirement to have an equal number of women as you do men officers in the school, if you're going to go that way. And I would hope that you have studied the effect and trauma on children seeing the police. For some of the children in your district, it's traumatizing to see police officers all the time. So if they're going to be, I know in other districts, they just wear like a polo shirt and something with an emblem on it. I hope that the children aren't, being confronted with an officer carrying a gun in open. So my question to the board, is that your intent, is to have an armed off-duty police officer? Because that would be problematic. And I guess I would have to try and provide information regarding what it does do to children that are immigrants, that have had parents that have had incidences with police. I'm not saying that you shouldn't foster a good relationship and try to work on those things. And we're just coming off the anniversary of the 14th of Sandy Hook. So we know the importance of having people there in our schools when needed that respond appropriately. So those are my concerns. I don't want any children traumatized by having a police officer. You've already, as a district, made that decision that that's the way you want to go, but I think you need to have the details for the public as to how they will be presenting themselves, and that there will be an equal amount of women and rotating between women and men and minorities in the school to match the school systems that are out there. That's my concern. Do any of you know any of those answers?
So your question is, you
Will
want
they
us to
be-
go into details about the makeup of the police officers?
Will
as
they
well
be-
as what they're going to be doing within the schools?
Well,
Is that your question?
They're there for security. No, I want to know if they'll be showing up on plain clothes, like a uniform, like in other, where they just, they have something identifying them as a police officer, but they're not in full garb uniform. They're off duty. So is it an off-duty event where you're paying for somebody? They have the system set up with all the police departments where you can pay for somebody to show up at your event in full police officer gear. Are the children going to be greeted in the morning, getting off their school buses by a police officer with a gun or however, a gun and a taser and handcuffs? Or are they going to be, you're paying for it, so you get to direct what it is that you're paying for. This is a motion under this topic that you want to get passed tonight. You're going to be voting on this. So I think you may want to table it. January's coming up pretty soon, and this is, the ninth hour, starting January 1st, 2022. But I think this needs to be a little bit more, you're going to have a police car. Is it a marked car or is it going to be a police car? Because now we already have a problem in this country where we have from cradle to grave, where we're incarcerating more people than any other country on the planet. So this is a very grave thing that you're doing. And I understand the reasons are coming from a place of goodness, but you also have to do it consciously. We have a mental health crisis happening now. We've seen some of it firsthand just recently. We saw it at the council meeting where, unfortunately, the people who were educated in your district think that a council meeting is a Board of Ed. They thought they were at a Board of Ed meeting 2 days ago. So I think this needs to be very thoughtful when you do pass this.
Thank you.
Maybe someone can make a motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Harris?
Hi, ma'am. I didn't catch what town you're from, but welcome. This is a renewal. We've had police officers in our schools for at least as long as I've been on the board, 6, 7, 8 years. I think largely in response to the Sandy Hook Elementary School that you cited. This is simply a pay raise. Annually, they bargain collectively, and it's typically $1 a year increase. So last year was $46. This year it's $47.
That's informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It didn't have that information that it was a renewal. Can you answer the other question if how you have them at your schools? Are they in uniform?
Madam President,
Dr.
if I could just say, that would be divulging our plan, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to tip off anybody that would watch this meeting. We've had this plan in place for a number of years now. It seems to be working, and we don't comment on specifics to what they wear, what they carry, what they do.
Okay.
So that's why we don't want to go into it. Not that we don't want to answer your questions.
No, I appreciate it,
But that's
though.
been our policy, that we don't go into specifics about our security.
That's fine.
plan.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Christo, South Edison. I think it's my opinion that we should scrap this. $47 is a lot of money, $47 an hour. You should scrap the whole deal, and you can put it out to bid. Let police officers bid themselves. Hey, I'll do it for $25 an hour. I'll do it for $30 an hour. To give someone $1 a year increase makes no sense to me. Are you telling me 50 years from now we're going to start paying them $97? That really doesn't make any sense to me, Miss Anderson. Also, I've been accused of hating police officers. I don't hate police officers. I don't love them. I think there's good people in every profession. But I didn't want no police. I didn't want to be around no police officer when I went to school. Luckily, the police officers that we had in my school, they knew when to stay away from you. They were some pretty cool officers. So hopefully, there can be a balance, that there's no reason to, I'm not against it, of course, for the kids' security and everything, but also that these officers can start learning these kids' names while they're still young, have good interactions with them. So this way you can start building some trust, that's one thing we can do. For the part that says for the township to provide police cars and fuel at no cost to the district, that I'm not really understanding that. So we're gonna fund them to come here and go to work. We're paying them $47 an hour, and they can't use even their private money to come here in their private police vehicle to pay for their own gas. When this police officer is here, okay, is he here in his official capacity as a police officer, or is he working privately? Lawyer, Do you know that question?
Are you finish your question?
I apologize because it could have led up to another, but okay. Please remember that. What time? 2 minutes? Yeah, I want the police officers to, you know, everyone has a job to do, but to remember they're looking after these kids, you know. Every interaction they're gonna have with them, it's gonna, you don't want these kids early on to be afraid of these police officers, even though in South Edison, we were already afraid of them. They were already coming to our neighborhoods, beating us up. We're talking about before body cams now. But like I said, luckily, we had good police officers that were in our schools. Hopefully you pick the right police officers to watch after the kids, because that's the most important, that you pick the right person for the job. We don't want some RoboCop that's going to be targeting the kids, or, you know, they're there strictly for the kids' safety. If someone comes from outside of the school to give danger to the kids, then to act. Is that guy right there?
Sir?
Is that guy out there? No, I'm not speaking about a member of the public. It's an employee. I'm asking about an employee right now.
Address the board.
Is that guy out there?
Sir?
Is he
Mr.
one of your
Metropolis,
private-
Just face
please,
us.
Is that one of your? Is that one of your private police officers out there that Mr. Molnar does not want to say? You know, he is so obviously a cop. I knew when I came here. He has the air. You know, there's no way he's just a security guard. He has the air of a scumbag. He
Sir?
should be fired. I don't-
Sir?
No, I'm not
Your-
being.
your-
I'm
your
not
time
being
is up.
insulting. I'm
Your
not
time
being-
is up. You're not
No,
going to
I
insult
still got
anyone.
46.
Your time is up.
I got 45 seconds.
Not when you become rude. No, you cannot call anyone a name. Sir, have a seat. Have a seat.
You're violating my civil rights.
She's not violating your civil
Violating your
rights.
civil rights.
I'm airing my grievance that guy was completely rude to members of the public. He shouldn't be
Okay.
around the kids.
Next speaker, please.
Why can't I say that?
Next speaker, please.
John Bartarik, Water Night. Obviously, you know, this year or probably last year, there was a going around, we should defund the cops, police department. We all know there was a false thing to start, number one. Number two, we don't need more security. My question is, couple, you know, on the same subject. Are those police will be inside the school or they be outside the schools? Number one. Number two, are we such a, what you call it, such as January 1st next year, are we such a kind of a danger, so to speaking, to put all those police? You took at least 25 police. That's a lot. That's 10% of our what you call the Woodbridge Police Department. And to have those all the extra cars and everything else, I mean, I'm for it. We had to protect the most valuable thing we got in this town, the kids. But again, are there any other school boards or towns they put such extra security in the schools, or just Woodbridge? And my question with why is just Woodbridge? Why just Woodbridge? What do we expect to happen to this town, or happen to people moving to this town, or why? My question is just why. But I mean, again, safety comes first. We all know it. And let's not talk about money, I guess. And again, if the police will be under the cover, so to speaking, not in uniforms, can you have a so-called private security? They would do same kind of work and wouldn't take the police department, because even the police are off the duty, but they still can work 24/7, a second job too, and then be efficient when they do the police job for the township. If it's whatever it takes, best for the kids, I'm for it. But what scares me is that's kind of that's unexpectedly, all of a sudden we need this extra force. I always thought that we didn't need even to beginning police officers, especially inside the board education building. Now I understand why we need them. But again, it's kind of don't put a scare on the people. Please explain them more. What for? Why you try to achieve? Why you try to protect? And that's my question. Thank you.
Sir, we're not able to go into detail of our security plan, as it was stated before.
Hi, Amy again, Ford's. I'm here obviously as a mom of two. I cannot say what school because I'm here for the open forum for a privacy issue for my daughter. But I know for a fact that my daughter's school only has, and I believe this goes more for school safety, my daughter's school only has a nurse on
Excuse me,
hand.
ma'am. We are on the agenda, so your question has to
Yes.
be on the agenda, item
Security
number
and school
one.
safety,
But it
correct?
has to be specific to item number one, and you started to go into detail about a school nurse. So you can come back at public comment unless you have a question about item number
It's
one.
only about police officers.
Only on item number one.
It's not a general topic, it's just the agenda items on the topic. So we give an opportunity to the public to speak to, make comment or ask questions with respect to agenda items on that particular agenda. And right
So I
now,
had
we're on
just
this,
saw
there's only
items.
one agenda item.
Okay, because I had just saw items for discussion as security and school safety.
Right, no, I understand.
And
It's
the
confusing.
police pay, I'm sure, is important, but I'm sitting here and I waited for everybody for 45 minutes for you guys to come down. So I had just wanted to voice my opinion because
So you can do
later
that during
on,
the
my
public
other
comment.
item, I
You can
don't
do it
know
during
if
the
I'm going to
public
get,
comment.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get to what I need to because I only have 5 minutes later. So I just wanted to let it be known. I don't think, I
So
know
what
my.
you can do is you can call, if you would like to speak to the superintendent, you can call the
I
superintendent.
spoke to him already about my one issue, and that's why I'm here today.
Okay, so you can call,
I'll call again. That's what I'll do.
roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain,
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro,
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Athletics and extracurricular agenda, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you, Madam President. The Athletics and Extracurricular Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, presents the following. Tonight, I'll be moving 5 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapetro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello.
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Buildings and Grounds agenda, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam President. The Buildings and Grounds Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and Business Administrator, present the following 3 items. I move for the adoption of the foregoing.
I have a motion by Mr. Harris,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Treebwasser. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Good evening, Tom Maris. On point number 1, the board is going to hire an architectural service to do a study on upgrades of various school properties, namely 4 schools, 21, 24, 22, and 26. Spending $250,000 for a architectural study would lead me to believe that there's quite a bit to be looked at. Can you explain exactly what they're going to be doing and why, and what is the long-range plan once that architectural service has completed their study and submitted it to you? That's it. That's my question.
Mr. Wolferman?
Thank you, Ms. Maris. This is part of the bond referendum that was voted on earlier. The plan is to look at to increase parking spaces as well as some traffic flow issues. There's some wetlands involved as well, so we want to make sure we're not encroaching on that. So it is a full drawings, design, reworking to increase capacity for these various schools, which were the ones that were determined to be the most in need.
Would that then lead to going out for bids if the study warrants?
That is correct.
Construction work. Okay.
That's correct.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain.
Yes.
Mr. Delapetro.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. Molnar.
Yes.
Mr. Sedana.
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello.
Staying on number 2, yes on 1.
Mr. Treebwasser.
Yes.
Mr. Velez.
Yes.
Ms. Anderson.
Yes. Transportation agenda, Mr. Delapetro.
Thank you, Madam President. The Transportation Committee, on recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Business Administrator Board Secretary, presents the following three items. I move for the adoption before going.
I have a motion by Mr. Delapietro,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Sedana. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello? Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Personnel agenda, Mr. Molnar.
Thank you, Madam President. The Personnel Committee, on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools and the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, presents the following. Tonight, I'll be moving 34 items.
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Delapietro. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public?
Stacy Gregg, item number 33, the category substitute secretaries, substitute bus attendants, substitute school aides, substitute paraprofessionals, and summer aides. I would like to know the breakdown on sex, male to female, for these jobs. I'm looking at this, and I would imagine there is a huge amount of female employees that are included in this category. I know I'm to talk on this, but I think it was outrageous, the amount of money that was spent on male architect or just any firm, male or female, whatever architectural firm, just for designing parking lots. Whether it's grade, the elevations or not, that need to be addressed. That sounds very shady to me. I did not get up for that, to speak against it or to ask for more information on that, and if there was a relationship between the superintendent and that particular firm that contract was given to. I am we just heard that we want to give our police officers a living wage. We've had a fight in this country for, 20 years. What the minimum wage is outrageously low.
So your question is on item number 33?
Item number 33
And you
is
wanted to break down of male and
$13.
female?
I would like a breakdown as to male to female
Okay.
on those individual areas. These are areas that are not, these
So
are
you have to
high-skilled areas. It takes a lot to be a secretary, and these
You
are
have to
people.
Oprah that request.
Ma'am, it's just for the rates.
Yeah, and the rate is horrible and disgusting and
Okay, but you're asking for a break, you're asking
disrespectful.
for a breakdown of the substitute?
I'd like to know the sex of the,
There's no people attached to this. This is the rate for those
but
positions.
the rate applies to a predominantly female
Yeah,
group.
you can make an Oprah request. That's fine. Make an Oprah request.
Okay, I
for
could do that,
information.
but I also want to hear individually what all the board members
It's
feel
not
about a
on item number
13-hour
33.
rate.
Are you done with your question from item number 33?
I would like to have it pulled and voted on individually and have it polled on the people here who feel that that's
Okay.
I'd like that pulled and I'd like it to be voted on individually. So the public knows how you feel about paying basically female employees. Thank you.
Roll call, Mr. Wolferman?
Ms. Bourdain?
Yes.
Mr. Delapietro?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Molnar,
Yes.
Mr. Sedana?
Yes.
Mr. Tamburello?
Yes.
Mr. Treebwasser?
Yes.
Mr. Velez?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes. Mr. Bush, do you have any recommendations?
I don't at this time, Madam President.
Thank you. Is there any old business that should be brought to the attention of the board? Is there any new business that should be brought to the attention of the board?
Madam President,
Dr. Massimino?
I want to address something. At our last meeting, we had some discussions about what we were teaching regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools. I also understand that the topic of critical race theory was raised by members of the public at this week's Township Council meeting. I'm going to repeat what I have said before. Like every other district in the state of New Jersey, the Woodbridge Township School District does not teach critical race theory. We adhere to our state's curriculum standards. We continue to teach character, education, acceptance, and belonging. We will continue to do everything we possibly can to ensure that every child is treated with respect and is able to be comfortable in their own skin. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open the meeting for public comment. When you come to the microphone, please provide your name and the section of the township in which you reside. As per Regulation 1100D, Comments must be limited to no more than 5 minutes. No response will be given until you have completed your opportunity to speak.
I'd just like to first apologize. I'm very emotional because of what I have to say. I would really appreciate if everybody from the board could look up at me, put their cell phones down, and give me the respect that I gave you guys for staying extra and giving you guys the time you needed when you were discussing your private matter. My name is Amy. I'm in Fords. Like I said, a mother of 2. I've been part of everything that I could for my school, part of the PTO and everything. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with MS, and it took a complete toll on my body. I still worked the book fair and did everything for the school. So this is very hard for me to write. I come here today to be the voice for my 9-year-old child. Unfortunately, I cannot divulge specific information. And is the other principal still here? I'm glad there's another principal here. I cannot divulge specific information on this matter as it is an invasion of my daughter's privacy, but I can give you the facts of what has been brought me here today. The beginning of this month, my daughter let me know something that literally made me sick to my stomach. After she informed me of an unacceptable course of events that had happened at school, I told her I'm sorry that it happened and that it was completely wrong. She shut down immediately, and I didn't want her to relive it, but I needed to know what happened because I had noticed for months that she had been acting differently lately. She said she was sad and embarrassed and felt that she wanted to cry, but she couldn't at the time of the accident because it was in school. At the incident. It had happened a while ago, but I said it didn't matter. She wanted me to drop it. It was a complete invasion of her privacy, and to make matters worse, the individual who acted this way was not a classmate, a substitute, an aide, or even a teacher. No, it was the one person that's supposed to protect her the most at school. It was the principal. I called her teacher to verify the story, which she did immediately. And immediately I contacted the superintendent, Dr. Massimino. I spoke with him on the phone briefly, and he told me he would speak to the principal. If she were to contact me about the situation, what would be the best way to do so? I told him by email, as I was still too upset to have this conversation with her. I waited eagerly for an apology email to come that day, or for at least Dr. Massimino to contact me back to let me know what came of the situation. Neither of these two things happened. Instead, the following day, I received a 4-sentence email. I hope this email finds you well. Dr. Massimino made you aware of your concerns. As you know, my priority is always keeping the students safe, yada, yada, yada. If you would like to discuss the situation further, please don't hesitate to contact me. I found this completely insulting, that not only did she fail to apologize, she didn't even mention my child by name. When I went to Dr. Massimino, I was not dealing with detailing my concerns, but rather this was a disgraceful act done to my child by an adult who should have known better. And because this was my child, this made my child feel more embarrassed and mortified. On top of the plain fact that it was a complete invasion of her privacy. The only concern I had stressed to Dr. Massimino, and he'll vouch for me, was that I was worried that it would happen to another child, or God forbid, my daughter again. So I forwarded the email to Dr. Massimino. To my surprise, he replied back with, I believe the intent of the email was to open the door to a conversation. He knew I didn't want to have a conversation. And even though I was infuriated, I decided to write him back anyway, letting him know I appreciated for his time. But that was it. I never heard anything back after that. I cannot go into detail, but my daughter is not the same. She's a shell of who she once was. She was failed by the people who were supposed to protect her when her parents are not around. And these adults, they just walk around, carry on with their lives with no one to answer to and no repercussions. And my child now struggles every single day. I already feel uneasy sending them on the bus, as numerous times my children have gotten lost and arrive late to school almost every single day. So to add this on top does not make me want to keep them in Woodbridge Township. I'm not the mom to just let it go, be too busy for my kids, which I have a business for 15 years, 14 of those years were in Woodbridge Township. I just moved it to Rawway. I will fight for my children, and I will fight for this child until something is done. So my question are, what repercussions, if any, do these adults get in instances like these? And how can I know I'm sending my child to a safe place if something like this nothing is to be done? How do I know what was discussed between the principal and Dr. Massimino if he never even followed back up? I come here asking that my daughter and I receive that formal apology, the one that I should have expected in the first place. But above all, knowing that I'm the one left to pick up the pieces, ultimately for my daughter's embarrassment and emotional state after the fact. I am here to ensure the situation is addressed for the sake of other children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate you bringing that information to the board. I'm going to have Dr. Massimino address it.
Thank
So
you.
when we spoke, I said I would reach out to the individual. You did not want to be contacted via phone, so
That
I
is correct.
conveyed your concerns and mine with that individual. I do believe the email that was sent to open the door to communication. I do believe it's important for the individual in question and you to have an open dialogue because your child is in the school. I cannot go into any details from a personnel standpoint about what I said to her or potential discipline or anything of that nature because that in and of itself is confidential. So regardless of what action was taken, I cannot legally share that with you. When I spoke with you, my understanding was that there was no communication, so I was hoping to foster that.
I made it abundantly clear that an apology needed to happen, but the way she had worded the email, and I quoted the entire thing in this, and I can leave it for all of you to
And
view.
you absolutely forwarded to me that, ma'am, and it was addressed. Unfortunately, I can't go into great detail about what that conversation looked like because it is protected under confidentiality because it's a personnel matter.
Then
So-
I just ask other board members of what I read to you today, does nobody else feel as though an apology is owed?
Yeah, let me just explain, if I can just jump in here. And this is hard stuff because you're a parent, like a lot of people up here, and everybody knows how dedicated parents are to their children, and clearly you're very dedicated to yours.
Of course.
Of course. The biggest issue that we have as a board, and I think Dr. Massimino is trying to tell you this, is that we often have, with respect to the information we're able to share with the public, or a parent even, one arm tied behind our backs, right? So if Dr. Massimino were to deal, whether it's your situation or any other, with a personnel matter, with an issue that he's concerned about when the way an employee handled something, and not at all saying that that's the case necessarily here, he would do that, of course, because that's his job responsibility and he takes it seriously. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the parent or the individual who raised the concern in the first place would get to find out. Similar to student matters, for example, your daughter's privacy, which is
It
extraordinarily
was completely invaded.
right. So
Hers gets to be, but the adults walk scot-free.
but your daughter's privacy, which is of utmost importance, and we take student privacy incredibly seriously, that is something that we wouldn't ever be able to talk about with anyone other than you as a parent, for example. So, we're not really talking about the issue here, nor do I suggest we talk about it here, but this is the type of matter that is an administrative matter. The board would not be involved in that level of administration unless you as a parent wanted to inform them about that type of thing. But, this is the type of information that's shared with board members. Dr. Massimino is going to deal with it from the information that you shared with him in the best way that he knows how. And again, we've got one arm tied behind our backs. I understand that you want more information, but unfortunately by law, you're not able to get it. So this is a balancing act that we're trying to preserve your right as a parent, your rights of your child, as well as the board's responsibility to do its best to, obviously stay in its lane, have the administration manage its schools, and certainly respect you.
Well, I understand that you are the lawyer for this board. And what was done it wasn't like something little. So I did seek counsel. I did seek a lawyer. And this is not in a threatening way
No, of course.
at all, please.
Yeah, that's your right.
Which is why I was very careful with my words and did not discuss it. So I'm very well aware. But I just want to finish with, there's something said about human decency, simple human decency, and knowing in your gut when something is wrong. And what is worse is when something is wrong and you do nothing about it. And I would love to sit down with any one of you that would love to reach out and find out the whole story, but I know my lawyer will be emailing everybody or sending it out, so you all
Yeah.
will eventually find out about
Yeah, you
my daughter's
have your
case.
lawyer reach out to my office, okay? Because these people here
If
are.
you could get me your contact, that would be much
Yeah,
easier.
absolutely. I'll give you my contact because certainly your lawyer should be reaching out to me and not individuals who are represented by our firm. So
That would be
absolutely. Yep.
fabulous if I could get that. And I thank you all so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, David Pinkwitz, Island. First, I guess in the last few minutes while I was waiting to speak, a note went out from Dr. Massimino to the entire school community about threats. I guess it's a generic threat of violence across, and from news reports, I guess it came across TikTok. Dr. Massimino just referred to it as social media in his letter. So I'm just giving the opportunity, after I conclude my other comments, if Dr. Massimino wishes to comment further, since, like I said, it came out across to the parents just a few minutes ago. Probably not everybody in this room even read it yet. The other comments are, one is related, one is not. So let me, first on COVID. So in particular this week, and just like other parts of the country, we've seen a growth of cases. I know in my daughter's school, at Kennedy, Woodbridge High School 2, each had, I think Woodbridge had like 16 cases since last Friday. Kennedy had 18. But one thing that the COVID dashboard doesn't show or reflect is the number of students that are in quarantine. And so one question I have is, how many students are in quarantine total? You know, I'm not asking for individuals or anything. But if my understanding, and please correct me if it's wrong, is that because of high transmission rates throughout New Jersey, the rules are a little stricter now than they were at the start of the school year? So that I believe close contacts, these are close contacts, if my understanding is fully correct, would be close contacts that have not been vaccinated, would have to be out for, I think, 14 days. So if you have just a comment, like how many people are we talking that are now sitting there on Zoom or whatever to attend school? And also, I don't know what the rules are or what the expectations are, but what would have to happen? Are we at risk either before winter break or shortly after winter break of going completely remote, either individual schools or the district? All right, my second comment is regarding, we had obviously the recent school shooting where, according to news reports, student was met with, and parents were met with counselors. They knew about the student searching for ammunition, and the counselors wanted the student to be taken home. The parents refused. And then, we all know what happened. The student stayed at school. And at least from news reports, and obviously there's probably more information that wasn't released publicly, it did not appear it got to that school administration beyond the counselors. So my question, obviously you can't answer a question about another school district, but are we reevaluating or evaluating what we do today if a similar incident were to occur where a student is making searches, let's say on their phone in a classroom, about guns or any similar threat? Are we at the same kind of risk where parents just say, tough, I'm not taking them home? Police aren't called, principal isn't called, student stays, and then we have an incident. So just want to kind of understand, obviously every new incident, every new piece of information might lend itself to say, hey, we're doing the right thing or we're not doing the right thing, we need to fix it. So, what's the school doing to look at these incidents, not just this one, but any incident, to evaluate what we do today to see if we can avoid a similar outcome? And fortunately, Most schools will never see a similar outcome, but obviously we don't want to have that happen here or anywhere else. Thanks, that's it.
Okay. Dr. Massimino, you want to talk about the COVID dashboard?
Sure. So we have a COVID dashboard that talks about the positive tests. To be honest with you, Mr. Pinkowitz, I couldn't tell you the number of students in quarantine because it is an ever-changing number. The State Department of Health did issue new guidelines today, shortening quarantines with a test. So if you are not vaccinated and you are in close contact and you have no symptoms and have a negative test between days 5 and 7, on the 8th that you can return. So it is a pretty lengthy document. I got it this afternoon. I will be sending out that new guidance to the community tomorrow. I'd like to have a chance to digest it, talk to the building administration so they're prepared for it, and then I'll get that notification out to the parents. With regard to closing schools, there's very clear criteria. We work with our local health department on virtually every issue to make sure that we are compliant with whatever guidelines we need to discuss. So we do follow the guidance of both our local health department and the New Jersey Department of Health. With regards to the critical incident, any kind of critical incident, we try to always have a debrief once we have the information that comes out of it, the investigations, such as Michigan, when it comes out, we'll take that. We will work with our coordinator of security, the authorities from Woodbridge Police Department, as well as our administration, because we want to make sure that we're putting out any resources, any information, trainings that can help us pick these things off, catch them ahead of time. Obviously, it's hard to predict, and these are tragic incidents, so we try to acquire as much information as possible and discuss them and see what, if any, changes we need to make or pivots to make sure we're prepared.
Okay, and then the other was about your notice that went out.
Yes, so it is social media. If you remember, I had sent out something about the TikTok challenges a few months ago, because unfortunately they do get out and students do engage in this activity. So we got information from the prosecutor's office, the Office of School Preparedness, and the state police, and all of these generic threats were deemed not credible. We were advised not to close school. So districts around the state are sending out letters. And that's why I sent out what I sent. I want the parents to be aware that, it was brought to our attention. We did communicate with the administration, the coordinator of security, Woodbridge Police, to make sure everybody was on board. We've been getting updates from, the Office of School Preparedness, as well as the prosecutor's office, who's relaying the information from the state police. So, one of the reasons why it went out as late as it did was because I was trying to acquire as much information as humanly possible before I sent something out to the parents. It is it is alarming and disconcerting anytime we get a message like this. However, we want to be transparent that we're aware of it and that we're putting everything into place that we possibly can to keep our students safe. It's unfortunate these threats come up, but I do think we have to be responsible in how we respond and what steps we take.
Yep. Public comments.
It's public comments.
Hello, good evening. James Dabrowski, Woodbridge proper, proudly representing our local NAACP, Perth Amboy area branch. I'd like to begin with a quote from the late civil rights legend, John Lewis. I believe in freedom of speech, but I also believe that we have an obligation to condemn speech that is racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic, or hateful. At our last Woodbridge Board of Education meeting, and at this past Tuesday night's Woodbridge Council meeting, members of the terrorist hate group, the Proud Boys, showed up, and at our council meeting, one of them even spoke, anonymously, of course. We will continue to show up to these school board meetings and stand with each other in our club colors to make the statement that we will not have our children fed sexual degeneracy and the rewriting of history. A Proud Boy who only identified himself by the name of Bert disgustingly stated. You would think a group of Proud Boys would be proud enough of their bigotry to use their real names, but like their Ku Klux Klan kinsmen, these Proud Boys are nothing more than hateful cowards who can't stand the fact that more and more of us are finding the conscience and the courage to stand on the right side of history and make the vital commitment to anti-racism. Designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center and also a terrorist entity by the Canadian government, The neo-fascist Proud Boys were created in the midst of the 2016 U.S. presidential election by Canadian far-right political commentator Gavin McInnes. The Proud Boys frequently appear alongside other known hate groups at violent extremist gatherings, including the deadly Unite the Right hate rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. In fact, it was Proud Boy member Jason Kessler who helped organize that horrific event, which brought together a broad coalition of white supremacists and resulted in the murder of an anti-racist counter-protester. Our disgraced ex-president appallingly stated that there were very fine people on the side of these white supremacists, outrageously assigning a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. When he was asked during a 2020 presidential debate if he would condemn white supremacists, and in specific the Proud Boys, he notoriously replied, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand by." His dangerous words were immediately celebrated and embraced by the Proud Boys, who began using it online as a recruitment tool. And as the world witnessed on January 6th, the Proud Boys and other white supremacists indeed answered his treasonous call to overthrow our very democracy. Thankfully, their deadly coup attempt failed, and the Proud Boys are in complete disarray, with arrests and sentences and lawsuits abound, which has led to this terrifying new strategy of targeting school board and town council meetings. The plan of attack is to get involved at the local level, said a North Carolina member of the Proud Boys in a December 14th New York Times article. We've seen these groups adopt new tactics in the wake of January 6th, which have enabled them to regroup and reorganize themselves, said Jared Holt, a resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab, who researches domestic extremist groups. One of the most successful tactics they've used is decentralizing, Holt added, explaining how their extremist tendencies have only increased because members feel more comfortable taking their hateful positions in smaller circles. And here we are, with the terrorist hate group not only right at our door, but already inside our home, making themselves comfortable. Hatred is a cancer, and when a cancer is detected in the body, you don't ignore it and hope it will just go away. You don't say, maybe if I don't give it attention, it will leave me alone. No, you confront it. Just as we have our kids recite in our school's anti-racism pledge to stand against racism wherever it appears. When Proud Boys in North Carolina targeted the Orange County School District, their superintendent and board of education stood up for their students, staff, and community members by passing an anti-racist resolution condemning the hate group and condemning white nationalism and white supremacy. Our Woodbridge Board of Education and Central Administration were all emailed a copy of this resolution on November 22nd, urging them to pass a similar one. Let's hope they have the courage to stand up for our students, staff, and community members and make it officially clear that hate has no home here in Woodbridge Township. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Reverend Donna Stewart, President of the Perth Amboy Area Branch of the NAACP. Happy holidays to each and every one of you. I hope you have a safe, successful, and prosperous holiday season and new year. I'm speaking obviously to the president, obviously representing, but I want to congratulate the student, Mr. Joshua. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce your name, so I don't want to try to butcher it, but congratulations to you on all of your achievements and your accomplishments. And I want to congratulate all of the students who have achieved any level of honors and being inducted into any honor society, whether it be academic or athletic, and being a alumnus of North Carolina A&T State University, and the president being an alum of FAMU. We are pushing that HBCU, so go Del State. What I want to say, I'm standing up to say, I want to thank all of those who were brave enough and courageous enough to come and stand and speak. I think it takes a lot of courage to come and speak before people, regardless of hissing and comments that are made and intimidation tactics. But I do want to say that as I was reading the pledge that the students have here in Woodbridge, the anti-racism pledge, I believe it's the fourth one. It says, I pledge to never hesitate to do what is right when given the choice of being kind or excluding others. And my perception of that is basically, we need to not ever hesitate on doing the right thing. And I want to thank the Avenel Middle School for doing the right thing. They had a day of giving, and then they gave donations to those of different organizations and groups. And they thought it not robbery for them to give a donation to the NAACP, which we thank them for the gift and the fact that they thought of us. And the reason that these young people, however we were suggested, whoever gave them our name, realized that we are not a hate group, right? Because children and school administration and district will not allow anyone to donate for a hate group. We have been called a hate group by many people as the NAACP, as members of the Black Lives Matter organization, whether it be Black Lives Matter New Jersey, Black Lives Matter Woodbridge, Perth Amboy. It's not a hate group, okay? Mr. Dabrowski has read the history about hate group, which are the Proud Boys, and they have been listed that and deemed that. And we are not that. We are not here to intimidate anyone. We are here in solidarity, and our shirts say it. Hate has no home here. Okay, we cannot, you should not put out a pledge to the students of the district, and we as adults and educators and parents and administrators and elected officials neglect to make a statement. Everybody is welcome because it's an open meeting, open public meeting, but I think a statement should be made from people who represent the community, this township, this school district, and elected and hired people to make a statement saying that hate does have no home here, that there is no home for hate in Woodbridge School District or Woodbridge Township. So I would ask that you all make a statement, whether it be a written statement, a statement, to whomever, however, but moving into the new year, we can't continue to do things that are symbolic to make it think like we're doing better and hiring a Black person or a woman or someone who might have a handicap or disability to make it think like we're actually including people and that it's equal, because it's not, it's symbolic. The things that I've seen and witnessed recently have really vexed my spirit and vexed my soul. And as a Black person, as a woman, as a Christian, as a pastor, and even the president of the organization, I feel like one of my responsibilities is to speak up. Here I am at 55 years old, now getting into this fight for civil rights. I shouldn't have to do that. I'm 55. I should be able to relax and chill. I have 3 college graduates that 31, 27, and 23 years old. I should not have to be fighting for them for things that my grandparents and other people have fought for. We have to stop, and we have to stop pretending. It's not you versus us and us against them. We have to do this together. But until we accept the truth about what's really going on and make actual statements and make some steps moving forward, we're never going to get past it, people. We have to stop pretending that we love each other and it's a kumbaya situation, because it's not. It's not. I don't know most of you, have never seen you before, and may never see you again until the next meeting. But guess what? When I see you as a human being, right? I don't hate anyone. I may hate the actions of many people, but I don't hate anyone. So please keep in mind as we're moving forward that we really need to make a statement that hate really does not have a home here. I mean, I have so many things that I wrote down here, but I just really wanted to stress that hate has no home here, and whatever we can do as an organization, the NAACP, the Perth Amboy Area Branch, which services Woodbridge, we want to do that. We want to partner with you, with the young people, the older people, educated people, uneducated people, those who are elected, those who are employees. Thank you. And especially our young people, because they need to see us truly getting along, and we need to stop pretending for position's sake. So thank you much for the opportunity to stand before you. And again, I wish you all a safe, happy, and healthy holiday season and new year.
Thank you.
Okay, you were asking people for their names and addresses. Lawyer, the law does not require me to provide my name and address. May I continue? Am I recognized?
State your name.
Christo, South Edison. So, as I'm just hanging out here recording, as we saw from the previous speaker, they insinuated something and looked my way, as if I'm some kind of enemy to somebody. Number one, I want to let everyone here know, whoever you are, I respect you. I respect your activism. I respect being a member of the community. We're all equal. But what's worse than hatred? Misunderstanding can lead to hatred as well. When I first met some of these people that are in this room today, very first moment, without even saying a word to anyone, they didn't know me or anything, right away labeled as a white supremacist, a racist. For what? For showing up and recording a rally. I like to record anything, whether it's a meeting, a Proud Boys event, a BL. I'll record any. You tell me there's an event, I'll go there, record it. I went there and I recorded like some of the members that were in here that day. Except for some reason they felt I was racist. Maybe they felt I was with the one group. Misunderstanding. What else is a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding is walking back from your home after getting a pack of cigarettes only to be spit on for the hat that you were wearing. That's absolutely disgusting. They like to preach a lot about acceptance. They need to start practicing what they preach. They claim not to be violent, but here they are. They're creating websites. They got whole websites where they dox people, where they say, hey, if you don't agree with what we agree with, we're going to put your address out there. We're going to have people come slash your tires. We're going to have people destroy your home. This is what they do. Now, the same way everyone has a right to come to a meeting and state their concerns, but when you see that they don't like a certain group, right away, they try to cancel them out. They try to violate their civil rights. Why is that? I didn't see any group coming after them. I've seen these people come after members of the community. They can give themselves any name they want in the world. I don't consider them Black Lives Matter. I consider them communists, Antifa. Do Black Lives matter? Of course, Black Lives matter. What doesn't matter is to go around acting like children all the time, to be dividing members of your community because you don't agree with what they have to say. You claim to be a Christian. You claim to be a pastor. But why?
Sir, are you addressing the board?
Huh?
Are you addressing the
I'm
board?
not. I'm addressing. If somebody claims to be a Christian, if somebody claims to be a pastor, wouldn't
Sir,
they want to unite the community rather
sir,
than
you
divide
only
the
can
community?
address the board.
Excuse
You cannot
me?
address the
I'm
public.
addressing the board. I'm speaking
board.
to you, mate.
You have to speak
Lawyer.
about the board.
I'm speaking.
You speak about a board matter, sir.
So
A
the
board matter. I need you to
public
speak about a
comment. So
board
these
matter.
people, they claim to care about the community. They have no care about the community. Miss Anderson, my life was put at risk by a Woodbridge councilman. He claimed I called him the N-word, even though a recording existed. I never said no such thing. What do? They start doxing me. I start receiving phone calls, threatening phone calls. You should check Mr. Anderson's Facebook. He still has it on his Facebook, the lies, where people are talking about bashing my brains in with a baseball bat. Are you related to Councilman Kyle Anderson? Do you think that's appropriate for a Woodbridge councilman to create lies about members of the community, and where because of these lies, people are talking about bashing somebody's brains in with a baseball bat? It's on Facebook, Mayor Bush. Anybody can go take a look at it. These are the people that claim they don't want any trouble. As you can see from day one, I have always gave out an olive branch. I have always, all the time. One thing you'll never see is them trying to get past the olive branch along because they do not want to be united with anyone. They don't even want to try to understand somebody. What's the reason to spit on someone for having a MAGA hat? I mean, they can say, oh, that represents neo-Nazi. It really doesn't. What's the reason to spit on someone for wearing a MAGA hat? Would I spit on someone for wearing a Black Lives Matter hat? Absolutely not. I'll defend anyone who spits on that person. So what the hell's going on here? 45 seconds. I had 45 seconds left, and you removed me for what? Because
Time's up, sir.
My time is up?
Amber Jarrett, Woodbridge proper. Dr. Massimino touched briefly on the topic of critical race theory. I just want to say I've worked in education my entire professional career, about 20 years now, and the last 10 have been in New Jersey public schools. I have literally never once, as an educator, had a conversation about critical race theory as part of my job, not in a faculty meeting, during curriculum planning, or professional development. And I've done curriculum work, particularly in the area of social studies, every summer for at least the past 5 years. And while I think my district too has a lot of progress to make, I would consider the efforts of my district administration to be a little more proactive and progressive than here in Woodbridge, at least from my experiences on the parent side. But even in my district, critical race theory has never been mentioned, not once. In fact, and prior to this year, when I heard the acronym CRT, I thought it was a reference to culturally responsive teaching, which is something that's been around for years. I personally gave my first presentation on promoting cultural awareness and understanding to educators at a conference way back in 2007. So 14 years ago in Kentucky, no less. So CRT has become this absurd boogeyman, an effort filled with misinformation and claims that as a teacher, I'm not sure if I should laugh or cry about it, honestly. It's an effort to stifle much needed progress in the areas of equity and inclusion, and an effort to create unsubstantiated fear and distrust and division. An effort that's been perpetuated by those who want to embolden cowardly hate groups like the one that attended our last meeting, Board of Ed meeting, and our recent town council meeting. Hate groups that hide their identities behind hats, sunglasses, and gaiters, which is honestly the contemporary version of showing up in a robe and a hood, if you ask me. I wholeheartly respect freedom of speech and expression. I certainly express my own opinions, and I've never shied away from engaging in a conversation with those who with opposing views. But when you decide to attend a public meeting in a hate costume, the intention is not to advocate for or protect the well-being of children, certainly not all children. The intention is not to engage in productive dialogue. The intention is to disrupt and intimidate, and it's certainly not something I want for my community. DEI, or whatever acronym you want to use, is not about making white children feel guilty. It's not about turning cisgender, heterosexual children into members of the LGBTQ community. I feel like it's crazy that even you have to say that it doesn't work that way. It's about teaching children to be decent human beings. It's about developing the ability to consider other perspectives and to peacefully resolve conflict. It's about accurately portraying historical events and providing perspectives beyond just the white man's. It's the ability to empathize with others, developing the ability to think critically, and the ability to not only identify instances of injustice in your school and community, but to develop the tools and knowledge needed to push back against that injustice. For all human beings to be seen and heard and valued. For the values of freedom, equality, and justice to actually apply to everybody. For all children to have a voice and access to a safe, high-quality education. I'm actually disappointed in the district's past response at one of the meetings that DEI was a state mandate and one that they have no choice but to implement. It's actually something that's been considered best practice in education for years. Since I've become a teacher, actually, like I said, I presented on it 14 years ago. So the lack of notable progress here is very disheartening. It shouldn't have taken a state mandate or the murder of another person based solely on the color of their skin or their ability or their mental health status or their identity or their religion for change to happen, for schools and community to take action, sorry. We have an incredibly diverse population here in Woodbridge, and this is something that should have been happening years ago because it's what's best for all children and what's best for the future of our society and our democracy.
Hello, my name is Victoria Birch. I'm from Colonia. Thank you for letting me speak and thank you for your time. I saw the pledge of students being able to start advocating. What was the name of the pledge? Anti-racism pledge. I wanted to know, teachers are inundated with every single mandate that's necessary, all of the new additions to their curriculum, all of the guidelines and state requirements that they have to meet in standardized testing. I first wanted to know what resources or efforts have been made to support teachers in putting this into their classrooms. And then secondly, I wanted to know if there's any quantitative or qualitative measurement of implementation, if there is any way to note or commend or measure how such measures are being, such initiatives are being brought into the classroom. Thank you.
Dr. Massimino, your support resources to support the teachers?
In terms of DEI?
This was in reference to the Your resources to support teachers was in,
Anti-racism.
Anti-racism.
Okay, I'll let our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion,
Mr. Ali?
Mr. Ali, respond to that.
Good night, and thank you for the question. So one of the first things that we prioritize in terms of making sure our teachers are prepared to lead productive conversations relative to DEI is training. We want to make sure that all of our teachers, all of our staff, all of our administrators are able to lead productive conversations. So rather than just rolling out a curriculum, in the same way that we wouldn't give teachers a math textbook without making sure they have the training to actually teach the lessons in the book, we want to make sure that our teachers feel comfortable, our staff feel comfortable being able to facilitate these productive discussions. So the very first layer of our plan is training. Training for staff, training for administrators, training for everybody at the school and district level. Above and beyond that, we are also putting together a DEI resource page. So this resource page isn't quite a curriculum, but it is a list of resources that can be used in support of our DEI initiatives. We are currently engaging in the process of curriculum writing as well, but we are at the very beginning of that. In terms of how we quantify the effects of our initiatives, we do plan to engage in an equity audit, which will take a comprehensive look at all of our initiatives to get a feel for what our areas of growth are and how the things that we have put forth are impacting and influencing our students and staff.
That's-
So the equity audit is to occur in year 2. So this first year, we're really focusing on training and also ensuring that we're able to meet the legislative mandate. And then next year, we will have implemented a whole host of things that we'll be able to measure the impact of next school year, that is. Yeah.
Good evening, Tom Maris, Forge, New Jersey. Look, I know the year's been very long. Tonight has been exceptionally long. So I'll try to be as brief as possible and get through my 5 minutes as quickly as I can. First, I'd like to compliment the board on the last meeting and on tonight's meeting. I found it exceptionally well done. It's really something you might want to use in the civics class because it was the best exchange that I've seen between elected officials and the electorate. And I compliment you on that. I know the last meeting was very long, protracted, a lot of things were discussed, but it was a great open exchange. And I'm glad to see it again tonight. And thank you for that. It's actually the way it should be, and I hope it will continue as we go forward in the years, months to come. I have several things I want to bring up. We've heard about the Proud Boys being at a couple of meetings. Yes, they were. As far as I know, they committed no offenses. They offended no one. They didn't disturb anyone. They have as much right to be here as I do, or anybody else that's here from any other group, as long as they do not disrespect the institution, and that they create no problems. They have opinions. They're entitled to express them the same way that the Black Lives Matter or anybody else can come here and express them as it relates to the education or the benefit of the community.
Excuse me, sir. Can you pause his time for a second? Can you pause his time?
Oh.
You have to put your mask on, sir. Thank you. You could restart his time. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. I didn't realize what the problem was, but thank you. Yes, where was I? So anyway, enough said on it. I think if anybody really is interested what transpired at the school board meeting the last time or the recent town council meeting from Tuesday night, just go online. You'll find it. You can see for yourselves, make your own judgments. But again, we're looking to keep harmony within the community. And as far as accusations about racism or anything else in this town, I've lived in this town longer than most of these people, twice their age. I have not found a racial problem in this town. And I don't need anybody here creating one either. I think they're looking for a home to create it. That's my personal opinion. Unless the school can specifically point out instances where you think we have a real racial issue, I would like to know if that's true and how that happened and how it was handled. Otherwise, yes, I think throughout the nation we have to continue to strive to make sure that there's fair, equitable treatment to everybody, regardless of race, creed, or color. That's what this country is built on. So I don't need any one group saying that the other group's bad or this. Do the right thing. Do the right thing for your community. Do the right thing for the kids. Do the right thing for the country. But let me get into some of the things that I'm concerned about locally with the school. As you may well know, there's going to be 94 apartments going up right across from Ross Street School now. There's going to be parking lot for 250 cars adjacent to that. How is the school going to handle that? I'd like to know when the school sold that property and to whom and for what valuation, and who did the appraisal on the property before the sale was consummated. Dr. Ali was good enough to provide me with some information. I had mentioned at the last meeting that I had a problem getting through the link. Peggy was good enough to send me an updated version of it. I was able to get through, and I found the document that Mr. Ali had referred to, taking action on racial equality, equity, pardon me, and justice. It's a very interesting read, but because it is such an interesting read, it brings up many questions. So in that regard, rather than waste the board's time at this point, I'd like to make a definitive appointment with Mr. Ali to go over this document, my questions, my concerns with it, so the next time I come here, I can address the board. Now, I've asked to have an appointment with you before, and now I've yet to have one. So I'm asking again in this meeting, I'd like to contact you, and I'd like a definitive answer as to when we can sit down and discuss this. Because I have many people that come to me, even after the last meeting, and said they are concerned about what is happening with DEI. Despite all the rhetoric that we hear, people still have concerns. And if I can allay those concerns, I would just as soon do it, or if I feel that there's reason to challenge them, I will do that. But the fair and honest thing to do is have an open discussion with it, and I'd like to be able to set that up. So I will reach out again to Mr.
You
Ali.
have to go through the superintendent for that.
I'm sorry?
appoint- You have to go through the superintendent for that.
That's fine. I
Go
will
through
do
the
that.
Superintendent's
And
office.
we've met before, and it was a good meeting, and I'd love to do it again. Because
Okay.
that's what it's really about. It's the open discussion. And as he knows, I'm sure that I've come back and said many things that were positive out of that meeting. And that's the great thing about it. And that's what I want to continue to do with this board, or be it with the town council. But my real concern is what's going to happen with the 94 apartments. And also, I do want to clarify that people really have to get to understand what a pilot program is, because there's a lot of misinformation from the administrations about how that really affects the tax burdens on people here. And in that regard, I'll be putting further information out. There's a lot of good information out there, but it's not the paradise that would make out to be by the politicians. So now, if you will answer my question.
So we are obligated to educate all the students in our district. So you were asking about additional students coming to our district. We have to educate all the students in our district.
I wasn't sure, when did I ask that?
You said, how will the school handle you said, how will the school handle the increase of students? That was your
That is
question.
the upper request that I put, I didn't say that tonight, I don't believe.
That was your first question. That's what I wrote down. That was your first question.
I know you have to educate any student that comes in, and there's cost associated with that. But there was other questions that I had asked.
What was the other question about the sale of, what was the other question?
Sale of property.
Sale of the property?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
And how that's going to affect that area, the safety.
Yeah, Mr. Maris, I think a lot of
I'm
this is, and you're proficient at it, we know that, right? I mean, you should just make some open requests and you'll get that information. We don't have the stuff off the top of our heads.
Well, I'm asking you, again, I anticipated that answer, and if the quickie out is, Oprah it, that's fine. But I want the public to be aware that there's 94 apartments going right next to a new school.
Your time
with
is up.
250 parking spots.
So your time is up.
Figured it would be. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a healthy and happy New Year. And again, I appreciate your service, and good luck to Mr. Tamarello. Thank you for all your service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gina Frazier, Port Reading. Here too, I know there's been a lot of pushback about the DEI.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me. Can you just pause for time for a sec? Sir, you have to put the mask over your nose and mouth.
We talked about this, sir. It doesn't, sir. Then you can watch the meeting on the live stream if you'd like, because
Yeah. You can't be in here with the mask off.
Christo, please don't test us. We want you here. We want you here, sir. We want you here, but you have to have your mask on. We are required by law to enforce this rule. You have to have your mask on. Everybody else here is wearing their mask. We talked about this already, sir. Please, you don't need to make this night more exciting than necessary. Just put your mask on, please. All the way up above your nose.
I just told you I'm getting
So then you have to leave. You have to have your mask on.
If you're refusing to leave,
You are,
Once I remove from the building, I'll file the court claim.
Madam President, do you want to leave?
if he doesn't have his mask on, he
Last
has to
chance.
leave.
This is your last chance, sir.
I'm filing my court claim, Mr. Bush. Absolutely disgusting. And the law says every child has to.
Sir, you're disrupting a public meeting at this, sir, you're disrupting a public meeting at this point. We've asked you to leave. You've been directed to leave.
Madam President, does he need medical help if he's dizzy? I don't want him to fall and hit his head on the sidewalk.
We don't want you to do that.
We actually want you to stay, but you've chosen not to have your mask on, sir.
No, it's not.
Everyone in this room has their mask
Everyone else
on
has
except for
their
you.
mask on. Do you need medical help? Okay.
You can resume your time.
Thank you. Sorry. I know there's been some pushback from members of the community regarding DEI, and I hope that everyone that sits on the board truly believes in this effort. I hope that you all are passionate enough and prepared enough to stand tough against these critics. I hope that you don't buy into the narrative that the DEI curriculum is here to indoctrinate our students. It's actually the exact opposite. It's here to make sure that that doesn't happen. I encourage you all to take the time, if you haven't already, and look at what you were taught about things like Thanksgiving, Columbus, Martin Luther King Jr., and explore how their stories are different from the ones that we were taught when we were in school. It's about understanding that nobody is trying to change history, but rather correct it. But this is just a small portion of what DEI is about. It's about making sure that years from now, our current students aren't here at a board meeting trying to convince people that diversity, equity, and inclusion are bad things, things that we need to fear. It's about ongoing and sustainable changes to the ways that we educate all of our students. It's about asking questions and listening to the voices that have been marginalized for so long, and then actually believing in those voices. It's about recognizing that teaching our students about DEI is similar to teaching them about kindness. It won't be the specific and explicit lessons that are neatly included in lesson plans that are the most important, but rather our ability to embed it in everything that we do. It is easy for most of us to morally object to the ideology of extremist groups, but it is important to realize that they are not the ones to fear, not the Proud Boys. They are not the ones holding up the status quo. You are, we are, all of us, every single person in this room. Every time we stay silent and choose comfort over truth. And that should be the purpose of the DEI curriculum, to help our students always choose the truth. Thank you.
John Rotary, Woodbridge, and I'll make a couple of questions and comments. On the November 2nd, election day, I went to vote at Woodbridge Middle School. And of course, the computers went down, they had to come back. And at both times, I was made aware, you insisted that everybody wears the mask on it. That time, there was 2 poll clerks that were registering the people to vote, and they didn't have their mask on their face all the time. And I didn't want to say anything myself because there was actually one of the Woodbridge councilman himself that he was there registering somebody. And again, it's a school. It wasn't just any other polling place. It was Woodbridge Middle School on Barron Avenue. And I don't know why instigating and making sure you sticking out. We obey whatever you say, but it's not all the time to the other people. What made a difference that day? Those people did not have to wear a mask on it, and everybody else will do it over here. Okay, enough on that. We want to talk about the last time at a meeting, I asked Dr. Misdemeanor, how many students do we have at Woodbridge schools this year? And he was said some north of 14,000. And I believe as of September 30th every year, you have to know how many students do we have. And is there any chance, doctor, that we can find out how many students do we have this year in the Woodbridge system?
Is that the end of your comment?
No.
Is that the
Second
end?
thing would be, how many students do we have from Avenel, which is called with General Dynamic property? Because the mayor used to say all the time there will be no children. And I made aware of where there's quite a few children. Would you know how many kids are coming from that project? Okay. And again, what was said tonight about Proud Boys, I was at a council meeting Tuesday, and I was approached on the way to the council's chair, to the council, the town hall, and I was called names, and I told to wife myself, and it wasn't from Proud Boys. Do we really know who the Proud Boys are? They were not somebody that came by night, brand themselves. They have been quite a few years. Do we really know those gentlemen? Who are they? How do you know they're not FBI, some of them? How do you know they're not the doctors? How do you know they're the ministers? They don't look like somebody that came from a gang from any place. And the people to say something like that, they have no decency to stand up to the salute to the flag of the United States. And they're going to tell us what to do. They'll tell them not to be prejudiced. That's the only thing to protect us. So don't bend in because somebody they have nothing else to do, but they'll instigate how we are racist, we're this, and that. No, we're not racist. We never were racist because most of us will discriminate against stuff, and we know what discrimination is. And once we are discriminated, you cannot discriminate against people. But please, let's waste the time on all those people that will tell you something. Do the same. You're going to teach kids in the schools? Are you going to teach them in college? It's too late to teach them with his teacher. Teach them from the beginning. You're just wasting your time because us as a parents and grandparents, I don't want Mr. Jimmy Borowski teach my children. Thank God he's not a Woodbridge teacher because we don't teach like him with Woodbridge. I hope we don't. I feel sorry for those people, those kids that he teaches. This is disgrace. That's not education. How low can you get to do what they're doing? You should have been in the council meeting and see him talking over there, yelling and screaming. And you want to teach our kids to do the same thing? That kind of citizens we want to have it? No, I don't think so. And as long as there's more of us than them, it's not going to happen. So don't tell us we are white supremacists. No, we are all Americans. There's no other country in the world, there's many nationalities, colors, religions, United States. So we all know how we live together. Most of them came from foreign countries to this country. But most important, this is it. We all know there's no other place we can go. This is the last stand. Ask people, where would you go if something happens? Like I brought you the book about the United States of Earth. They talk about now with one
Your time's
rule.
up. Your time's up, sir.
Oh, already. Thank you. Any answers?
The only question you asked was how many students in Woodbridge Township School District?
You asked specifically from Avenel?
Yeah, just tell me general
No,
dynamics.
first you said the students in the district, total district.
Yeah, our total student, I mean, the number changes daily. So
I'm talking from the apartments, doctor, from the apartments.
I wouldn't know that off
We
the
know
top of my head.
mayor quoted is 51 students. It's not many, but it's 51 kids coming from the,
I wouldn't be able to tell you where individual students live off the
Yeah.
top of my head, sir.
even if it's 51,
All
he
right,
said there
thank you,
won't be
sir.
any, but it's too
Your
stressful.
time is up,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not in this part.
I'm starting. I'm going to try not to take the full 5 minutes because everybody here pretty much said before me what I was going to say about I don't even like calling the peanut butter and jelly, the PBs, what they stand
State
for.
your name, state your name.
Stacy Greg Rockaway. The reason I wasn't going to get up, and then a statement was said that they, Proud Boys at the council and at the last board meeting didn't offend anybody. So there's a reason that person doesn't understand what offense is and what was taken. If you're a white male in the United States right now, it hasn't been an issue for you. But for everyone else, every single woman, every single race other than white, we have had issues with the last president. So of course they didn't see any offense. Just like the person who came and tried to apologize and was let out tonight didn't see any offense that I took to the Confederate flag. I'm a Polish Jew as far as my background. I'm second generation American, but my family's from Poland. My maiden name is Kohn, Kohn. The gentleman, very nice elderly man, white male in our country with a heavy German accent, as my grandfather had. They were from Russia and Poland, Germany. Didn't seem to be aware that the second he got up to speak, within a sentence or two, the Proud Boys, who he wasn't offended by, walked out. There's a reason they walked out. It takes a little bit of effort sometimes to bear with everyone that's speaking and to listen carefully and try and figure out what they're saying. And tonight I was very, very proud of this board. I think you conducted yourselves very, very professionally. You handled this meeting. I know you had to be anticipating a bad night tonight or a challenging night. And I'm very grateful that this is not an evening, God bless you, that will live forever in Woodbridge's history as an infamous night. This was a night where love and the community came out, and we were ready to take on Nazism. We were ready to take on a group that is known as a hate group, and I don't have to go over it over and over again, but I was very proud of you. I was very proud to be in the company of the people I was with. And I had in here about a wish that the school board, but I have a feeling you're doing this already because of what I heard from the NAACP member that spoke and congratulated the student who won the honor tonight. But I was hoping that your school board would teach, that you would recommend that all the students in your district were educated at an appropriate age in their studies about hate groups in all its ugliness, including the groups that they can go volunteer for, participate with, and learn from, such as the NAACP, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the Anti-Defamation League. And there's wonderful courses that they will come into the district and actually teach the community. I didn't know what some of the symbolism was until 3 years ago when I took a course that was taught by the Southern Poverty Law Center along with the police and the community. And then we noticed it in Bedminster, things that were put up there. So the history of these signs, can I have a time check? Because I'll stop. Okay, good. I'll take 30 seconds. I won't take my full 5. So the signs that you see here tonight, Stop Racism, is from a feminist organization with the Proud Boys are against, National Organization for Women. And these signs are historic with school boards all over the state of New Jersey. In 2005, when my child started kindergarten, I went around and I confronted a lot of school boards and got them to change, and I made friends with people, but we got them to vote for celebrating Martin Luther King on a district level, so the majority of the schools. So these signs made their way around. They've also been at a lot of protests, a lot of activism, a lot of groups. They showed up when we had in our state for family leave and for equal pay for your mothers, daughters, and wives. And, feminism goes back for the women the right to vote. And the group that showed up was associated with people yelling, "Jews will not replace us with torches. So I know a lot of that was touched on tonight. I don't have to go back there, but I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of this community, and I'm glad that tonight will be a night to remember, to rejoice about, the night that we were all ready to face them and fight Nazism. Thank you.
My name is Bill Neville from Seawarn. I'll say what I said at the council meeting the other night. This is America. We all have opinions. We're all entitled to do what we want to do, say what we want to say. I want to say that I lived in Seawarn for almost 60 years. Can you hear me? Sorry. For 60 years in Woodbridge Township. I remember in the 60s going in a civil rights march here in Woodbridge back then. I think that the town has always been equal and fair with anyone. You can live anywhere you want here, do what you want to do. I don't want the insinuation that, because I'm a white person, that I'm offending anybody by being white. And I don't want my kids to be, or my grandchildren to be thinking that either. So I think sometimes the way that we express ourselves or try to say that one person's better than the other or that you're all wrong, history is wrong, you've got to tear it down and change it all over again, it's wrong. I think that we should be going ahead, not backwards. And that's where we're heading with this kind of identity politics. Thank you.
Where is he?
I think he's at the restroom.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's it.
Thank you. Good timing. Okay, take it out the box. At this time, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Ezio Tamburello, since this will be his last board meeting. Ezio, you've been an outstanding board member. Your wealth of knowledge is so valuable, and I've had the privilege of working with you since I joined the board. And you have been a great role model. You were a mentor and a great advocate for our students. And I want to thank you for your service to our children of our community. And I would like to present you with the resolution from the board. And I'm going to read it. I'm going to take the time to read it to you. This is whereas Ezio Tamburello served as a Woodbridge Township Board of Education member since April 27, 2009 through December 16, 2021. And whereas Ezio Tamburello served faithfully and diligently as a board member during the period of his tenure in office. And whereas Ezio Tamburello performed valuable services to the board and to the public in the formulation of policy and academic programs and for the improvement of classroom facilities, athletics, and extracurricular activities within the school district. And whereas Ezio Tamburello gave unstintingly of his time, effort, and ability in assisting the board in its efforts to provide all stakeholders with a thorough and robust education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education does hereby express its sincere thanks to Ezio Tamburello for his efforts on behalf of public education in Woodbridge Township. And be it further resolved that the board secretary shall cause a copy of this resolution to be appropriately reproduced on a plaque, therefore authorizing for retiring board members and presented to Ezio Tamburello. And be it further resolved that this resolution is to be made a permanent part of the board minutes. Everybody stand up, shake his hand. Like you do when we get resolutions out.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Good cover up there.
All right.
Yeah, still. Madam President,
Mr. Molnar.
I just want to thank Ezio for your service to this township. I want to thank you for your friendship. You know, we've been serving together for a very long time. And I know tonight the public talked about tonight's meeting being long. You know, we don't mind long meetings. We've been doing this for a number of years, and we've had long meetings before, and that's what we do here, to listen to the public, what they have to say. You know, right now it's race relations and the teaching we do in school. You know, in years past, it was water balloon fights. It was the redistricting of the whole school district. And we're here to serve. And Ezio, you sat through a lot of this and your leadership, and this is how the school system evolved since 2009 when you were first elected. So I just want to say best of luck to you. Enjoy your free time. And just thank you for your friendship and your service to Woodbridge.
Madam President?
Mr. Harris.
Yes, I also had a few remarks for Yatzia. It's never joyous to say goodbye to a great board member, and you know, for me personally, a better friend and an ally. You know, for 9 years we shared many of the same goals and values. I want to thank you for your 12 years of service to the board, to the children, to the parents, to our employees, and of course our taxpayers. During your service, you primarily served on the Finance and Insurance and the Buildings and Grounds Committees, and you proved an invaluable resource to us on the board for your engineering and construction, your construction project manager experience. That professional expertise will be truly missed. You were instrumental in your years of service to the Negotiations Committee, educating fellow board members with a history and a context for future negotiations. Your steady demeanor has allowed for continued labor peace and mutual respect with our district's many bargaining units. Since you're not the type to brag about your accomplishments, I'd figure I'd do some for you. You served 2 terms as president. Having served one myself, a couple of us have also served as president, and we know the level of commitment, the stress, and the time that goes into such a role. Thank you. As an engineer yourself, you were enormously important in encouraging the next generation of engineers, and is why you successfully fought to ensure that engineering is taught at all 3 high schools. When we had a surprise school aid allotment dropped on us in the summer of 2018, 2019, instantaneously you said we should divide it up a third to property tax relief, to the school budget, and to future uses. During your time here, we've upgraded our sports and arts facilities. During your time as president, following your second term as president, following the tragic Sandy Hook elementary school shootings, you had successfully implemented the Safety and Security Committee, which had only a short time before you had become president, did we hire a security coordinator, and that has since evolved into much more, and our school district is better for it. During your time, you also increased shared services and middle school activities. I remember when your children were going through middle school, you knew of some of the things that were missing, and you advocated for those things. Together, you and I teamed up to ensure during one budget season that our district at the time had 3 student assistance counselors. They're sort of behavioral health counselors, substance abuse counselors, just sort of, mental health supporters in our district. At the time, we only had 3 between our middle school and high schools. You and I teamed up and we added 2 additional student assistance counselors, where there would be a dedicated student assistance counselor at each of the 3 high schools, and then the 2 others would share the 5 middle schools. And then a small project you and I worked on together, I remember this, was the Colonial High School press box sign that you and I teamed up and worked with Mr. Pace. I don't know if he's still here or not. And then, finally, as another accomplishment that I think is definitely worth noting, is when you were here, we passed successfully 3 bond referendums, which they take a tremendous amount of preparation and then implementation. And here we are after 3 of them, with new roofs and solar panels from the first one. Later on, the construction of 2 new elementary schools, with the second on the way. And then, of course, the acquisition of the St. Cecilia's School which has enabled us to implement full-day kindergarten, and of course, millions of other capital improvement projects, security enhancements, technology enhancements. Finally, we started together as candidates, relative strangers to one another. We knew each other really by name and not much more. And today we leave as one of my best friends. I've enjoyed getting to know you and your family. I invited Jenny out tonight, your wife, but she's very wise. After 12 years, she knew, what, the long ones, I'll see them afterwards. Hopefully she joins us out this evening for a beverage. This isn't goodbye. I expect you will continue to follow our district progress, and please don't shy away from offering your invaluable experience that you gathered over the past 12 years. Thank you for your service, Ezio.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Oh. Your board colleagues and I, we purchased a plaque for you to go on your wall, your office, wherever you'd like to hold it. It's got a gavel here to remind you of your years as president. Thank you again.
Yes, I'll be the bad guy now and make a long meeting a little longer. I apologize in advance. I do have some prepared comments, but first of all, thank you. I wasn't expecting this. I sincerely wasn't expecting this. I think me and Brian Molnar were talking about, hey, you're going to get a watch or something. I'm like, no, I'm just going to roll off into the sunset. We're good. But thank you, Madam President, certainly, and thank you for the plaques to my fellow board members. Like we've been discussing tonight, is my last board meeting, and so I do appreciate having a little time to say some of the thank yous and maybe reminisce about my tenure a little bit, so bear with me. There's several ways to leave public life, and not all of them are good, quite frankly, by the way. For example, voters could get sick of you and vote you out of office. You may fall out of favor with a political party or your core supporters and they choose to back somebody else, or God forbid, you could be forced to resign as a result of some sort of scandal, or you could retire in good standing with your reputation, credibility, intact. And tonight, that's the path that I have chosen. This is the right time for me to leave. Having served 12 plus years on the board, I needed to focus on some other things, but I am extremely proud of my service to Woodbridge Township, and I can honestly say that I've had a positive influence on the board, I hope, and that more importantly, I can sincerely call myself a public servant. There are always things you wish you could have done more for. There's always things you wish you could have changed. Dan, you mentioned a few of them. I wish we could have done more on tax relief and maybe some more on test scores, but as the rest of the board, we do our best, and I think I've done my best for both the student and the taxpayer. But this is a bittersweet moment because on one hand, I know the time is right, but on the other hand, I'm not sure if I will miss my duties and maybe having a small role in developing and educating our future leaders. Only time will tell. But I leave with a full heart, open eyes, and a clear conscience. But before I wrap it up, I do get back to my thank yous. I have so many people to thank. I'm just going to read from my list of people to thank here. Just bear with me. I'm on page 78. No, I'm going to get. Nobody laughed at that one. All right. Do you know every school board in New Jersey, we have an organizational chart which tells you who's in charge. I'll never forget that. I've carried it around with me since my first week on the board. It was given to me as part of my board member orientation. We have an organizational chart. Every district has an organizational chart. It's the electorate, it's the board, and then the superintendent, and then his supervisors and administrators. And that's it. That's the hierarchy. The electorate, the board, and the superintendent. And both sides of the table should never forget that. So my first group of people, first and foremost, that I want to thank tonight are obviously the voters that put us all here, the voters who have their trust and faith in us that, we can make decisions on their behalf. And I want to thank all of them. I wish I could shake every one of those voters' hands. And yes, I did count nearly 30,000 votes cumulative over the years. And I started in prehistoric times when we had some April elections when there was not a lot of turnout. So I was I'm very appreciative of that. Every one of my elections have been a humbling experience for me. I considered it the ultimate honor to have a friend or a neighbor or even a stranger leave their house, and this was before vote by mail or absentee ballots. You have to leave your house and go pull a lever for you because somehow you've earned their trust and the folks know you have their back. And you all, the voters of Woodbridge Township, you will never know how much that means to me and how much I appreciate it. So I wanted this opportunity to thank you, to the voters of Woodbridge Township, in offering me the opportunity to be considered a duly elected public servant. Thank you very much. To some of the great administrators, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out to some of the administrators. It has been my great pleasure. You all have had a great impact on my tenure. Of course, I want to highlight our current leadership team, Dr. Massimino, Ms. Bear, Ms. Giancarelli, Mr. Ali, Mr. Pastorino, Brian Wolferman. Thank you very much. Also, again, getting back to some of the administrators, I want to personally thank, and these folks, when you're in their buildings, are so very respectful, so very open and warm, and always we're good sounding boards. We're good teachers to me. We're people that I reached out to for advice and support. And some of the folks, I hope I don't forget anybody. Obviously, certainly Mr. Pace, who just left here a few minutes ago, Dr. Lotman, Mrs. Springer, wherever you are, Mr. Connolly, Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Bader, Ms. Giordano, Mr. Lee Warren. I want to thank Mr. Lee Warren, Angel Corridan. I'm going back, folks. Ms. Trupa, Dr. Crow, of course, Ms. Murphy. Congratulations, by the way, wherever you are. Mr. Panko, and of course, Dr. Zega, our past superintendent, a great friend of mine, and somebody I have a tremendous amount of respect for. In that regard, I also want to thank our attorney, Mr. Bush. As a gentleman earlier called you Lawyer Bush. I don't know if that you changed your first name. But, Jonathan, we've had some tremendous, incidences, or we've had some adventures. That's a good one. Especially my term, as Dan said, as president and board president, we battled some hot topics, and sometimes we would scratch our heads, and sometimes you had to laugh, and sometimes you almost had to just open your jaw in shock at some of the things we had to address. But thank you again. I think it's always been a mutual respect, and I sincerely appreciate that. So thank you, Jonathan. Next group of people I want to thank. We do not, our Board of Ed does not get into this business for praise and adulation. That's just not why we do it. Oftentimes, there are more criticism than compliments. So at this time, I'd like to thank my fellow board members, both past and present, for their service to their community, to our community. We may have, and speaking about many years of board members, we may have disagreed and argued over the years, and we've certainly had some battles. And I can sincerely say that I've probably learned something from every one of you. And so for your service, I want to say thank you, every board member. And bear with me. I want to thank Judy Leidner, Larry Malosha, Skip Garley, rest in peace, George Uhas, rest in peace, Lou Huber, Diana Quisto, Monica Smith, John Golden, John Treebwasser, Eileen Zullo, Sue Bourdain, AJ Sedana, Frank Delapietro, Marie Anderson, Joe Velez, Brian Small, who was there at the very beginning and really showed me the ropes of the Board of Ed, Brian Molnar, who also was already here when I got here. I think you were the only board member that was here prior to me. So to Brian Molnar, there's no one more knowledgeable about the relationship between the board and the community than Brian Molnar. And I want to thank you for your leadership and your friendship and your support. And I hope you continue your service for many more years to come. And don't tell your wife I said that.
Well, we'll see about that.
Thank you, Brian. And of course, to a great friend and a person I now consider family, Dan Harris. If you look up public servant in the dictionary, you'll not only see a picture of Dan, but you'll see his cell phone number and his email address. Dan is a genuine, sincere public servant. We must have spent hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours, discussing policy, and politics. Along with our quest to find the best chicken wings in the state, we still haven't done it, but we're still going to keep trying. That was some of the best times we've had over the years. You've been a friend through thick and thin, and Dan, your family, thank you for everything. And finally, that's right, we're at 9:44 on a Thursday evening. Finally, to my family. You absolutely cannot do this type of work at a high level without a strong support system at home. To my kids, Julia, Lee, and Charlie, sometimes you've had to share me with the 13,500 other kids in the district, but you never complained. You guys they've great sounding boards for ideas and initiatives. I would always go to them. It's such a benefit. Have 3 kids in 3 different schools and be a board member. You have no idea what a great sounding board and what a great focus group that was right there at the dinner, at the dining room table. So thank you all for that. Great campaign workers throughout the years. I considered you guys my eyes and ears on the ground. I love you guys tremendously. I'm so proud of you all. All 3 successful in life. All 3 the products of 13 years of the Woodbridge Township School District. Love you guys. Thank you. And finally, to my smart, strong, beautiful wife, Jenny, my best friend, my biggest cheerleader, the mama bear in our family. You do not want to get on her bad side and just say something bad about me, and she will come after you. She has put up with a lot more than I ever could have done. She's put up with a lot. Thank you, Jenny, for your love and support. We made this decision together, and I love you and appreciate you very much for joining me on this journey and for helping me along the way. And yes, unfortunately, now I will be joining her girlfriends on Thursday nights during board meetings because their parties are better than our board meetings. I guarantee you that. So that's a negative for her. Again, I just want to say, love you, Jenny. Thank you for everything. Your support has been amazing. I couldn't have done it without you all these years. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for listening. Peace and love to you all, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so with that, I want to wish everyone a happy and safe holiday season, and the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion?
I have a motion by Mr. Molnar, seconded by Mr. Delapietro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned.